We're speaking with Friedrich Grohe in Ojai, California, and Friedrich has been visiting here, and he travels the world in visiting and cooperating with the various foundations in India, in England, and in the United States, etc. So his interests are wide and deep. But Friedrich, how did it all begin? How did you first come to Krishnamurti?
As usual, somebody gave me a book. A friend gave me a book, you may be interested in this.
Yes.
And then I started reading and couldn't stop reading. I knew I can't grasp this so quickly if I read it like a novel, but I couldn't stop. So
it's the classic way to begin immersion in Krishnamurti.
I ask all the people who come to the study center at Brockwood how they came upon this, and 99% come through a book.
Yes.
Yeah.
It may be that with somewhat different technology today, people in the future may come more through watching videotapes or seeing on television, etc.
Yeah.
But reading is still the predominant way.
Yeah.
And so after you read the book, what was your next step?
So next thing I didn't know, did he still live? I had no idea if there was a school. And at one point, he said in one of the books, he says, if you are not happy with the existing schools, why don't you start your own school? Then I thought, that's an idea, we have to. And I tried to find out if there was a school in Switzerland. Of course, there was nothing. I discovered the committee in Geneva. And then I heard there is a school in England. And they said, yeah. And I said, why don't we have a school in Switzerland? They said, yeah, now there is a teacher in Brockwood. She wants to come back to Switzerland. And this was Giselle. And I thought that's a good opportunity, because in Switzerland, if you have a Swiss teacher, that's good. And so I suggested to her, shall we not start? And she was immediately agreed, and we looked around to find the right building and so on.
What year was this?
83.
83?
83, yeah.
Now, had you had a particular interest in education prior to that?
No. I came from the industry, and no. But
there was something about a school that attracted you.
Yeah. No, the idea to have the right education, as what Kay talks about in this kind of spirit. This was also my feeling when I came to Brockwood. First time I thought, my God, if only I could have been in such a school.
I felt that myself.
Yeah.
But what was it about what you read in Krishnamurti's words? What was it, other than you became interested in education?
Yeah.
What was it about his message, his teaching, that attracted you?
Yeah, finally something made sense,
Had you been interested in philosophy or religion?
A bit, in school I liked when philosophy came up, and this religion I never could believe. I thought something is wrong with me because I can't believe this stuff. And and this was, it was something new. Krishnamurti was so different from everything else.
Did Krishnamurti seem to you a modern man, in a sense, who spoke your language, in a sense, the one who does not believe, is not, let's say, gullible? I thought, this is what I felt perhaps before. I couldn't express it, but this was the right thing. So it was simply happenstance that brought you there, this
Yes.
book suddenly.
Yeah, yeah.
Which book was it again?
I think it was an impossible question,
Yes.
but yeah. Later I looked what was the impossible question, you know, because he says you must put impossible questions. And I found out the impossible question is, can sorrow end?
Is that an impossible question?
Yeah, it looks so.
It seems so. It seems so. How do you feel that Krishnamurti addressed these problems that people have? Can sorrow end is very pointed.
Yeah.
And you ask yourself that question, and then you say, how?
Mm-hmm.
How can I do this?
Mm-hmm.
Does he give you an answer?
I don't think so.
He just poses the
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
To me, that's one of the really deep things that Krishnamurti does to your mind.
Yeah.
He starts the questioning
Yes,
process.
yeah.
And at any rate, you found it so. And what was your next, after had you met him personally at that time?
Now, when he heard about the school project, he wanted to see me. I had just come to the talks, first in '83, and so 1st of August '83, I had an appointment. 1st of August is a Swiss National Day, that's why I will never forget it. I went with two flower buckets, one for Mary Zimbalist, one for Kay, and met him early in the morning because it was so hot at that time. So I asked if we could not meet early. So he came in his training, excused himself. You know, he entered, I was waiting. When he entered the room, I hardly realized that somebody came in, like a shadow. And then we talked about the school and we laughed and it was a lovely conversation. And he warned me about the school.
He warned you?
He warned me.
What was the warning?
He says, you know how difficult it is. We tried everywhere. They tried in Holland, in Germany, in France, and it still continues. And it never works out. And he said they always need money. And this is true. All the schools. So, but then I thought I'll still try. I'll continue. And he couldn't give his name to the school. I wanted it in his name.
Yeah.
He said if it's his name, he would have to look after it, and he had too much to do already with the existing schools. So we continued with Giselle. We had a wonderful building high up in the mountains we could put 60 students like Brockwood. And I took pictures of the building, and then we went to Brockwood to show it to Krishnaji. And he even didn't look at the pictures. He grabbed my arm and said, do you have the right teachers? Do you have the right students and the right parents? And you know, it was so difficult. I thought everybody must be interested in such a school. Hardly nobody was interested. So we had 1.5 students, perhaps, for the future, and a teacher. And then I realized I stopped the whole thing, and I got involved in Brockwood as the existing schools. And soon later, Krishnaji asked me, said, we'll make you a trustee. He didn't ask me, do you want to become? He had asked the other trustees if they would accept me, if they would agree, and they agreed, but me, he didn't ask me. So, but I was happy, to become a trustee.
Let me just go back a moment.
Yeah.
You had heard Krishnamurti speak, and then you met the man.
Yeah.
What was your reaction? You say you had a very friendly
Yeah.
relationship. What was the difference? Was there a difference between the speaker on the platform and the man in his tennis clothes or whatever it was?
Yeah, a bit, because
Training clothes.
he was very severe on the platform. Perhaps not so much in the dialogues or discussions. But also, yeah, for example, at Brockwood, my God, what was the difference? There was a staff meeting at Brockwood when they had these troubles going on, new Dorothy, the principal, she was too old to continue, but she didn't want to stop. So Kay talked to the staff, and he was so, my God, I thought, I'm glad I'm not a staff member. He was so upset that they had conflict in between the staff. There were two parties had formed. So, and then afterwards, I went out after this, and suddenly he appeared, took my hand. It always happened like this. I didn't just want to meet him or so. When I was thinking about anything, suddenly he was there. So he took my hand, we walked a bit, and he said, I never talked like this.
Well, it's interesting that, or is it interesting, that there seems to be conflict no matter where you are, even in Krishnamurti circles. Would you say is that appropriate?
Yeah, there's a conflict,
Yes.
yeah. No, he wanted us, or he suggested to have a life without conflict, which is a wonderful thing.
Is it possible to have a life without conflict?
Should be. He said he had a life without conflict.
Do you think he himself was without conflict? After all,
Yeah.
he went through many difficult times himself.
Yeah, but he was never, it was like an outside conflict, it never affected him. Yeah. He could be upset, He could be very severe. He never wanted to hurt anybody. If he said something critical, he always said it's not personal. And this you could feel. He didn't want to hurt you.
Yes. Well, Friedrich, you had the opportunity to delve in depth with questions that Krishnamurti raised, such as conflict, meditation, the various aspects of his teaching. What was the most striking to you? Was there something that really hit home in particular?
Well, I continue to study K. Every time I read, it looks new. Every time I think, now I got it. And even it's the same book, and I underline things in the books, and the next time I read it, why did I underline this? And this is much more important than what I underlined. So, it's a whole thing, it's it's a holistic thing, the so-called teachings.
Has it deepened your understanding of religions? Because let's say that each Muhammad or Christ or Buddha, each had a teaching which became blurred over the years by interpretation, and it becomes a belief, I think, particularly in Christianity and the Muslim faith.
Yeah, I think I learned I always learn when I read or hear Kay. And also about religions, of course.
I think that the idea of faith is something that some people seem to have as the bedrock of their life,
Yeah.
whereas others reject it completely.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think it makes any sense. All the religions, any belief, you know, why? Yeah.
Now you had rather a rare opportunity because you spent a lot of time with Krishnamurti, and you would take walks with him, and many different incidents and stories perhaps arise in your mind.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you tell us
Yeah,
any
yeah.
of those?
The one which happened here in Ojai, I was living in a house in the town, and one room, or some rooms, they had one room especially had a very funny feeling. So a guest said he got caught by his throat in the middle of the night. And I knew Krishnaji, he could exorcise places. So once he came on a visit, and I asked him if he could do something on this, about this ghost. He immediately agreed, said, wait a minute, went in, and then he came out, and I said, there's another room, could you do something? So he went again. You know, he never refused anything, he was always there. Yeah. And it was a time he was already a bit becoming weak. It was, I think, in '85. And the next day I came to his lunch. And he came, you know, he had this a bit shy way. He asked me, did you feel something? I didn't realize immediately, and then I thought, he means exercising. And I said, oh, it was such a good feeling, such a peace. But I wonder if it's not imagination. He grabbed my arm and he said, so do I. And but I want to tell you this in French because we spoke French. So the original thing was, est-ce que vous avez senti quelque chose? Oh, j'ai senti une telle paix, une tranquillité, mais je me demande si c'est pas l'imagination. Moi aussi, he said. Okay.
Did Krishnamurti actually feel something when he went into that room?
He didn't tell me. He didn't tell me. I think he said, now it's good, when he came out. We had a similar thing in Rishi Valley. There was this temple. When you went for a walk to the Tetu village direction, there was a funny temple with a terrible goddess, and they made some sacrifice there, killed some animals sometimes. And we walked along this temple, and I had heard also he had done something there before or after. And we walked into this little shrine, looked, there was behind some bars, there was a funny figure, this goddess, and I wanted to open these bars, but he stopped me and said, no, they don't want us to go in.
It's a puzzle. It's a puzzle.
Yeah.
This supremely, I won't say, intelligent, yes, but perceptive, but there's that other side.
Yeah.
The person who would feel these things, apparently. And do you know what he did to exorcise these bad spirits, let's say?
No. So I heard he walked around the room. Yeah. Perhaps he touched some things, but not exactly, No.
Now, on the other side of the coin, let's say, there are stories of Krishnamurti healing people.
Yeah.
And people coming to him with various illnesses.
Yeah.
And this was always a very low-key part of his life.
Yeah.
He really didn't want it known,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
But it was something that happened.
Oh yeah. Mm.
Were you present when anything like that happened?
I heard something from people who were present, but he did something to me. I had pain on the chest, and quite some time, quite strong pain, but I didn't say anything. One day he walked by, just made this, and it went. He laughed a little bit, stuck. Yeah.
It brings into relief the question of belief.
Yeah.
If you believe that, and
Yeah.
he always took it rather lightly. He didn't say that he believed that he could heal people,
Yeah.
and yet apparently he did,
Yeah.
or at least temporarily.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't realize immediately, what he was after when he touched. Only later, that was the thing. Why it was so, yeah.
But you actually felt a difference.
Yeah, it didn't come back.
Ever?
But I should wonder if it's not imagination. He always asks us to doubt our own experience also. So.
Is that doubt because there was something beyond the individual self that had a certain fixed view, and in asking us to look in a more broad fashion,
Mm-hmm.
he is widening the scope.
Yeah.
Do you have any other stories that you'd like to tell us, or any particular incidents?
What are the stories? Little things. His awareness. He realized everything, little things. One day I came for lunch. I couldn't find my belt. So I went without my belt, and I didn't say anything. 2 days later I came again for the lunch. He said, "Did you find your belt?" So I don't know how he realized this.
Well, those are, let's say, lighter manifestations of
Yeah.
Krishnamurti.
Yeah.
But the depth of it, you say that every time you read, something new unfolds.
Yeah, yeah.
What would that be, for example?
Oh, I learn. Yeah. Yeah. I don't like. Yeah, he didn't like this magic part of the thing that he did the healing and so on. He didn't want to give importance. It distracts from the essential things. And also not to be too much concerned with him, with the person, but with what he says, which is more important. We will never know him. You can never know him or any person. How will you? We hardly know ourselves. How can we know somebody else? And we change.
Do you feel that you have changed as a result of knowing this man?
Oh, I change all the time. I think even independent of this. Some people, I can't say myself. Some people say I changed completely. I don't know.
And your interest in Krishnamurti also took form in helping various schools financially,
yeah,
in taking photographs of schools, which you've done
yeah,
to a considerable extent.
yeah,
You are a biographer of scenes and of areas around the world. That has been important to you, apparently.
You know, when I heard him first, then I traveled to all the places where he talked. I went to Brockwood, then to Ojai, and then he said, "You come with us to India." Then I went to India, and even 10 years after, every year I went to India afterwards, even after he died. I knew him only the last 2 years of his life. When we went, the last year I went with him to India, and when we were in Rajghat in November, he told me, "I have some months to live." And he died in February. Yeah. But he was already very weak. I was concerned that he went to India because he was very weak already, and in Rishi Valley he had fever and he lost weight. He was so thin. And in his last talks in Madras, he had fever when he was talking. So I was glad when they cancelled the Bombay talks, and then he went back to Ojai in January.
Apparently, Krishnamurti said that when his body was no longer able and sufficient to carry out his teaching, that he would go.
Yeah.
And apparently that happened.
Yeah.
Was Krishnamurti always the serious person that we see as the teacher? He also had a lighter side where he told jokes and was a humorous person.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, he could laugh, to tears.
So do you think he was well-rounded, as a human being, well-rounded?
Yeah. I always says he is, one doesn't know how, is he a philosopher, is he a psychologist, what is he? He is all of this. And I think, I said he was a realist. He was so realistic. He saw things as they were. And also in practical life, I saw he was so practical. And when he described, for example, in the international trustee meeting, the last one we had with him in '84 in Brockwood, he described the situation of the schools and other schools and foundations, and it's so accurate. And in very few words, he could exactly describe the situation.
And he seemed to be able to tune in to people's intent in various activities in schools and foundations.
Yeah.
He seemed to be able to discern what people's intent was.
Yeah, he could. Sometimes I had the feeling he said something, I was just thinking, but he was reflecting. It was not he thinking this, he was reflecting what I was. So I could learn from this. One interesting thing, in Madras, he went to the beach. He liked to go to the beach for walks, and once I went with him and some of the other trustees, and when we walked back, I walked behind him, and I thought, now we are here, all these old friends are here. He knows some 50 years, and I'm this newcomers, and he's so kind with me. What will they think, Suddenly he turned round and said, I don't think this way. So,
And interesting
Yeah.
perceptions
Yeah.
that just seem to come up out of nowhere, but he was
Yeah.
able to discern that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And what was there any particular incident that was most striking to you? What touched you most about Krishnamurti, the man and the teacher?
Mm-hmm. I would say he was a fascinating person, a fascinating life. My God, the work he did. So many letters, so many talks, discussions, all his life. But I think what he says is most impresses me most. You could be distracted by the person because he was such a lovely and amazing person. But still, what he says, the so-called teachings,
It certainly has had a profound impact on your life.
Yeah.
Your life as a businessman
yeah,
was quite other, I would imagine.
yeah. But I had already took a bit distance from I saw this doesn't make sense, working and always money, more money, making money. That's what it comes to at the end. In the beginning, after the war, it made sense, especially in Germany. Everything was destroyed. You had to produce something, everything was needed. There it made sense to do something, but then it doesn't make sense.
Now let me ask you, you mentioned the destruction in Germany. Did Krishnamurti talk about the war or the political scene? Did he talk about that?
Oh, he knew exactly what was going on. Once we were driving to Winchester and he showed me there is a place there, a big field. There Eisenhower assembled his troops for the invasion. I know Mary Zimbalist said this. And Kay didn't like this. He says, the war is over. But he told me, don't know if it was at this occasion, about the war. We talked about the war. I told him that the Germans were so afraid of the Russians after the war also. He said, yeah, they are right to be afraid, because everybody wanted to leave Germany at that time. I went to South Africa. We started a company in South Africa. My father, he just wanted to go away. But about war, Kay told me once that when they bombarded, I don't know how we came upon this, when they bombarded Hamburg, they first bombarded the center to make all the people run to the outskirts, you say? Outskirts. And then they bombarded the outskirts to get the people there. Huh?
We don't like to think about those.
Yeah.
Still continuing today. But I think the question of what is the right action when you have a person who is, in this case Hitler, who is actually an evildoer, is the instigator of war, what is the right action?
Yeah.
Should one defend oneself? Did he ever talk about an issue like that?
Once he said, it's not exactly this example, somebody interviewed him from the communist country, and he asked him, what would you do when you lived in a communist country? And Kay said, I would just talk to some friends. I couldn't talk publicly. Some friends like you, and that's it. He couldn't do anything. But your question is, what can you can't do anything. If you were against this regime, they killed you. Even if you listened to BBC, they could kill you.
So he was cognizant that one has to be very careful, but
Oh,
still
yeah.
continue speaking to a few friends, as
Yeah.
he said.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't participate, don't, yeah.
Did Krishnamurti feel that any kind of social action was an imperative in life when you see wrongdoing, war, poverty, etc., the big questions? Did he feel that one should take action?
He said the seeing is the doing. Yeah? If you see something, understand, then something happens.
So the right action follows automatically in
Yeah.
a sense?
Almost, yeah.
It's a question that we're still living with. Tell me, just to conclude, is there any special incident or any special insight that you have gained through your connection with Krishnamurti?
Can't say. Nothing, an insight. No special, no. I'm still learning.
So, Friedrich, you've had a great interest and great impact on the foundations around the world. And tell us what your intent is, not only in the foundations, but your outreach via the Link magazine. Tell us a little about that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's quite a story. If I begin from the beginning, the Link magazine, I have 6 people working with me. They are all former Brockwood teachers or staff members. And the Link, this started when I traveled a lot. I was a trustee of the Indian Foundation, a trustee of the English Foundation, honorary trustee in the American Foundation. And so I was a trustee who was traveling most. I think sometime I was the only one traveling to all the places. So when I was in India, in Rishi Valley, I thought I should tell the other trustees and school people in the school what's going on here. It was so interesting. So I wrote a report and I called it Friedrich's newsletter. And this continued some years and it became bigger and bigger. And at some point, first I did it almost alone, then Nick and Jürgen helped me, then the others came in, and then we put pictures. First there was no picture, and it was quite successful and people were happy to, we report also what's going on in the different places. Because once you are interested in Krishnamurti, you are on your own. Nobody else normally around is interested in this thing. Also not the families. This was also something which happened with Kay. When I was at the beginning, he asked me, what does your family think what you are doing in this, what you are doing here, about what you are doing here? So I was a bit hesitating. I still had some hope, perhaps my sister, my mother will be interested. But he interrupted me and said, they are all against. It's always the same. And I realized he was right. They were all against. Well, now back to the Link. So we have this new, we are alone when you are interested in this, and people are happy to hear what's going on somewhere else. Some are even astonished that there's so much going on in the world around the teachings. So that's a Link now, which has become quite a big magazine always bigger and bigger and more interesting. I think we get very good contributions, people writing,
Yes.
and we bring extracts from K. By the way, all these things I'm telling you, you can read it in, I have written a little booklet, and the new issue will soon be coming out in a month or so, The Beauty of the Mountain, where it's my memories of Krishnamurti, of my time. And there are more pictures this time, better English, a bit more extracts from K, which we also have in the link, extracts from his talks or dialogues. I think even The Beauty of the Mountain, one of the reasons to make it was I wanted some statements he made in a book, so it doesn't disappear somewhere in the archives. This was what he said about Brockwood today and in the future. He made a statement in '83, which I think is very important, and the intent of the Oak Grove School, which is also very important. These are in my book, so they are in print. And by the way, I was here when he made this statement about the Oak Grove School, and he wanted it to be distributed at a talk. And there I made the first donation to the American Foundation to have a good copy machine so they could print them quickly. They had not much time, it was the next day or 2 days later. They should have this statement, the intent of the Oak Grove School, which is very important, and now we use it for all the schools, of course. It applies to all the schools.
Yes. And as far as your work as a trustee and your travels around the world, what kind of impact do you feel you're making as a trustee?
You know, I try, Kay always said, the foundation, make them international, the foundations, and you should come together. And at that time I made a special fund, a travel fund for the trustees, so that they could meet at international trustee meetings. I think that's a very important thing, this contact and friendship. Everything is easier, you know, if you are friends, if you know the other trustees or the people in the schools, it's much easier to work together.
So bringing people together is really one of your prime objectives.
Yeah.
Bringing the school world and the entire K work through the link and your travel funds, etc.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy being a trustee?
Well, no, not at all. It's so boring, these meetings, you know. I'm glad I'm an emeritus trustee in Brockwood, so I can go when I want and not go if I don't want to go, or leave when it becomes too boring.
But the practical work has to continue.
Yeah, of course.
Somebody has to do it.
Yeah.
Any further thoughts?
Many, but I think we must stop sometime.
All right, thank you, Friedrich, very
Welcome.
much.